Okay, hello everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about the MSc in Computing. My name is Renat Verbruggen and I'm from the School of Computing, and I have been the chair of the program, as we say in here, or if you like, the director of the MSc for a good number of years now. So I guess what I want to do is to say, first of all of this will be recorded. There will be a chance to answer or to ask any questions in the chat, and I'll try and pick up all of those at the end as we're going along. But put in the questions as we're going along. Don't wait till the end. And other than that, I'm just going to give an overview and trying to give you an idea, I suppose, of our motivation for setting up the MSc and possibly why you might be motivated to join it. Okay, so let's go. So where is it cited? So it's cited here in the School of Computing, and the School of Computing is inside Dublin City University. It's part of the Faculty of Engineering and Computing. And Dublin City University is one of the top universities in the world for graduate employment and the best in Ireland. It has a number of modern facilities, obviously, around the whole idea of computing. And computing itself is quite a large school, and it has a very, very strong academic team. As you'll see, the team that we have in the school are focused on teaching, but also on research and on innovation in general. We have degree programs at both undergraduate and postgraduate, and they're very highly valued both by employers and by the people who actually attain the qualifications themselves. So in general, our graduates are very, very highly sought across the world. The ethos of the university, and especially in the School of Computing, is that we drive our programs through excellence in both research and teaching. So the findings that come from the research are embedded in the teaching, and the feedback from teaching become part of what we do in terms of our research. Because of this, we also have research collaborations with numerous companies across the world. Too many to fit on the map, but they're the kind of the big ones that stand out. All the way from the South Korea and Huawei, which we've a long-standing relationship with, and Samsung, through all of Europe and across to the States. Many of our work in the research in the two research facilities that I'll talk about involves Google and Microsoft and IBM and everybody else that you'd expect in this kind of hub, as you know, that Dublin is for industry in tech. Likewise, our job locations are all around the world. This is a tiny little snapshot that we got from one of the boards. And again, the salary band is very high, as you'd expect. And the occupations go across all industries. Obviously, a lot of them are, from an undergraduate point of view, are in the software engineering field. But in the postgraduate, they focus on the majors, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Again, this is one of those awful slides of too many pieces of information. But it kind of shows you these are the kind of companies that directly connect with the undergraduates. In other words, we have a traineeship, an intro, we call it an internship. And our students go out to all of these companies and work for 6 months, which kind of shows you how, if you like, embedded the school is within, if you like, the tech industry in Ireland. So what are our courses? The courses that I'm not going to talk much about are the undergraduate courses. But they kind of show you where some of the teaching evolves from. So we have courses in business computing, 4-year undergraduate, all of these are, computer science and data science, okay? But what I'll be speaking about will be the MSc in computing and the specialisms, or majors if you like. And those majors are artificial intelligence, data analytics, secure software engineering, and natural language processing. So we believe that these, if you like, fundamentally capture what is required across industry at the moment. So why and how do we do this? Well, our idea is really to develop what are called fundamental skills, right? So we don't, if you like, this isn't a training school, okay? You're not in here to learn about packages. You're in here to learn the fundamentals of each of these majors. And that will give you the skill to tackle immediate jobs when you get out, when you complete your MSc. And that should allow you to have the skills to pick up whatever happens in the future as well. So we are really trying to develop within the student body an ability to deliver solutions, okay, to use all the skills and all of the techniques and all of the knowledge that they will pick up across this 1 year full-time, not 1 calendar year full-time major, okay? I'll talk about the actual timetable in a minute. So, how do you get in? Well, I suppose we better get that out of the way in the first place. So to get in, you have to hold at least a second-class honours degree, a 2-1 really, in computer science, computing, or computer applications. Plus, if you come from a non-native speaking country of English, you have to satisfy the university in your competency of English, okay? So, you know, there's all sorts of English as a foreign language exams that you have to do, Cambridge, TOEFL, and even Duolingo now. So that's all on the website. But really, and this is why it's in red, coming into this program, you really should be a good programmer already, okay? You should be competent in Python, Java, or C, and all its variants, C++ or Sharp. No one expects you to know all of these, but you should know one of them well. And as well as that, you should be comfortable. We don't expect you to have a lot of mathematical skills, but you should be comfortable with concepts of statistics and concepts of distributions and things like that. In other words, we are building the MSc on a typical entrant who has an honours undergraduate, okay? So when I said we were teaching fundamental skills, we're not teaching you how to program, right? Expect you to have that, but we will teach you how to use your programming skills, to use libraries, to build bigger systems, okay? And there's the link. There are a whole lot of other links, I'm sure, that will go into the chat, and if you search for it, you'll find them anyway. So it is the MSc in computing with major options that you're looking for. Okay, so what would you be expected to do? So this is just an example timetable for modules. So we call all our individual pieces of academic knowledge a module. And because of a wonderful agreement called the Bologna Agreement in Europe, we give them credit scores. The reason that I think it's wonderful is that these credit scores are the same, or are meant to be the same, as the credit scores used throughout Europe. And in fact, they're used in the UK as well. So in other words, if you get 7.5 credits from DCU and you're looking at a course in Milan, then if you know it's a 5-credit course, you go, okay, I've already done a course like that for 7.5 credits. So 5 credits, that's a smaller course. Okay, so that's why we call them credits. Now, what would happen? So let's say you decide to do artificial intelligence. Okay. Well, the first thing you would do is that you would come in the first semester and you would have to do the foundations of artificial intelligence. By the way, all these numbers, CA686, don't worry about them. They've all changed anyway. So they're just there as kind of a marker to give you an indication that every module will have a number associated with it, but you don't have to worry about that. So you will do foundations of artificial intelligence. You will also, so that will give you, as you imagine, an understanding of where the original algorithms associated with artificial intelligence came from, and you will program those. So you will learn, for example, about neural nets from the bottom up. So how can you use a neural net to do optical character recognition? How can you write that code? So it's a very low-level coding understanding of AI. Then you will do professional and research practice. So what's that? I teach that, and I think increasingly I see it as that's your transition from your undergraduate life to postgraduate. So it is a transition because in your undergraduate life, you are developing applications. Very important to learn how to develop an application. But in a postgraduate life, you should be able to do research. And how are these different? And why are they different? And what is expected of you when you're doing research? All of that is in that module. And it does basics like how do you reference and cite things correctly, right? And the dreaded plagiarism, what is it and how do you avoid it? Okay. But also there's a whole section on ethics as well. Ethics associated with IT, as you probably know, as I hope you are reading the papers, etc. You know that things have really moved on in terms of looking at ethics associated with AI, for example, or with data and consent and all of those things. There is an ethical aspect to it. So there's a whole section on ethics. And then finally, within the same module, there's a section on law. Now, IT law is very big. Anyone associated with Europe knows that the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, has had a huge impact on the way we use data, the way companies are allowed to use their data, the idea of consent, all the way down through to cookies, etc. So we look at a number of those different, very large effects, okay? So by the end of that module, you should have a, if you like, an understanding of where your computing exists in society, as opposed to just in terms of solving problems. Okay. And then what else? Well, I did say to you that you should have a mathematical competence, but we also know that you should learn specifically about how to use data in a representative and justifiable way. What do I mean by that? Well, if you are going to use data and try and infer something from the data, well, you need to understand what inference means. You need to understand about statistics. You need to understand about distributions of data. So how accurate are you being with this data? Okay, so all of that is in statistical data analysis. Again, we believe that you need these foundations in order to be able to move on in an area such as artificial intelligence, or in fact, in data science as well. And then finally, so you'll see we've now 4 modules to do in the first semester. You have data management and visualization. Why? Well, because there isn't much point really in having run really nice programs, analyzing really good data, and not being able to present it in a way that explains your problem. And I don't mean fancy graphs, right? I mean representative graphs. Visualize the data in a way that you can then present and people can understand what it is you have found. So that's really key. So what will happen is that you have those 4 modules. You will do them for 12 weeks, okay? 12 solid weeks, no breaks. And each of those modules will have approximately 3 hours direct contact, okay? Whether that's lectures followed by labs, in many cases, or whether it is a Q&A session with online work that you have to do. Either way, it is the work equivalent of 3 hours face-to-face. Plus, you will have assignments to do in them. So, for example, in the professional and research practice, you have 50% of the module are associated, the marks are associated with 3 assignments. An assignment developing a small literature review, so that you learn how to cite, reference, and develop a literature review. Another assignment to present that literature review as a video. Why? Because it's really important to be able to explain yourself in a very short amount of time in research. And then finally, an ethical essay, so that you can practice the idea of applying ethical methods to a case study. All of that's 50%. And then what happens? This actually is the interregnum. This is week 13. So after the 12 weeks, there's a break of a week. And then next week, you have 2 weeks of exams. So you will have an examination in each of those modules before the Christmas break. Okay? So the whole semester is wrapped up before Christmas. 12 weeks, exams, and then so on. Okay, so then what happens? Well, then what happens is you have a well-deserved break and you come into the second semester. So in the second semester, you will have modules such as data analytics and data mining. So now using the statistical data analysis and the data management and the AI that you know about, you can now look at data analytics and data mining. How do you get information from all this data? How do you analyze it in a deeper way? How do you run models on it? Okay. And then you have machine learning. So we've all kind of heard about machine learning. How does it work in practice? What are the fundamental concepts associated with a number of the machine learning algorithms that are out there? Again, fundamentals. Loads and loads of Python here, okay, as you'd expect. So Python would be the de rigueur for all of this, or would be used in some of the statistical data analysis, okay? And then after those, not after, but during the second semester at the same time, you would also be doing artificial intelligence, information, and information seeking. So this is where you're looking at a broader use of AI, again, across a number of different areas, and how you use it and how it can be used and what you do with the information that you get. Okay, so they're all what we call core. And then you have an option, and we call those options elective. So you must choose either the mechanics of search. So we all know about Google, but how does that actually work? And if you want to set up your own search mechanisms, how do they work? In other words, again, fundamentals of the algorithms that are associated with it. And understanding, if you like, what happens under the hood. Or you can go into statistical machine translation, which, as it hopefully explains, is about natural language processing at a very specific level, which is machine translation using methods of statistics. Okay, so there are options. So what happens? Well, same thing. You've 12 weeks, semester 2, week of break, and then off again for exams. All right. So now you have completed all your taught modules. But as you can see in the strap line there, it says additionally. So if you're totting them up, you will see you have completed 8 by 7.5, right? Which should give you 60, right? So with those 60, you then add 30 more credits, and that gives you 90 credits for an MSc program. So where do these 30 credits come from? They come from what we call a practicum. So what's a practicum? Well, we kind of borrowed the term from MIT. And what it is a piece of research that is done by the students in pairs normally, and is then presented to the faculty, if you like, to the lecturers, the assessors, as a presentation and a research paper. So you don't write a thesis, because we believe that an awful lot of a thesis is actually just writing background. And we kind of don't want you to spend all your time writing. We want you to spend your time doing the experiments that will lead to the research. So you do a piece of research in your major. So for example, in AI, you run experiments, you get the data, you analyze the data, and you then present to us what your findings are in a research paper. Some of these research papers will be published, but we expect them all to be written in a way that could be published. Okay? And then you're assessed for that in August. Right? So that's what I mean about it being a full calendar year. You come in here in September, you finish up in August the following year. So you get your practicum done, you now know how to do research practically. And then that's it. They're your 90 credits for the program. Okay? And you have a paper with your name written on it, which you have presented. So that's the format. And each major will have different modules in it, and some shared modules, but that's the overall look of it. I'll take questions obviously from the chat about the exact makeup of that whenever we look back at the chat. So that's it really in terms of the core idea of what this is about. In terms of the majors themselves, if I look at what we have, wait, let me see the best way of doing this. I suppose the ones that I have explained for AI, well, in data analytics, instead of focusing as much on the concept of machine learning, you spend more time trying to, if you like, as it explains, spend more time trying to look at the data that you have achieved, the experiments that you have run, and the visualization of that. Okay. So what happens in secure software engineering? Well, secure software engineering is often looked at as, I suppose, a bit of a Cinderella of IT. Increasingly, security has become important. Everyone knows about ransomware. Everyone knows about attacks. So how do you create secure systems? So again, it's a fundamentals course about not just, what are the latest hacks, etc., but how do you build from the bottom up? Okay, so what does it mean to code securely? What does it mean to write code that is secure? How would you talk about that? Obviously, what is the core and the most important fundamental algorithms associated with cryptography? How do they work? How are they changing over time? And why are they changing over time? So all of that's in there as well. Plus, you obviously have to do research as well. You have to do a practicum in secure software engineering. So you have to try out some of these ideas. Increasingly, as you probably know, a lot of it is to do with testing. So not just penetration testing as such, but the testing of systems using AI, for example. So there's a crossover then, and we have found some very nice practicums where people from different majors come together, and in coming together, for example, from AI and secure software engineering, they can develop systems using AI to do attack and defense in security of systems. Okay. And then finally, last but not least, we have natural language processing. So natural language processing, again, as you probably know, is at the core of an awful lot of what is sometimes called generative AI, as in AI that is using a natural language approach to come up with very, very well developed answers to questions. Okay, so in other words, it appears to be using a type of natural language. You know, in other words, whatever language you are using with the AI, it will reply in a manner that almost looks like conversation. So what are the fundamental algorithms, the machine learning algorithms underneath that? So they're all covered in natural language processing, okay? And also increasingly, it looks at where this is going in terms of research. So NLP, as it's called, is a burgeoning area of research, as you can imagine. And again, as I want to emphasize, you would be learning the fundamentals. It's not about using tools, it's about learning and understanding the fundamental tools associated with it. Okay, I'll pop back and have a look at the chat then. Right, good question. Timeline look for part-time. So part-time, effectively what you do is you just spread it over 2 years. So what does just mean? Well, it just means then that in the first year you would do 2 modules in each semester. So 2 of the first semester and the second semester modules. In the second year, you would do the same. So that would give you your 8 modules in total. And then in your second year, you would do the practicum. So effectively, it's 2 calendar years. Now, in the first break, if you like, if you want to call it summer, the first summer, you wouldn't have any actual work to do on the MSc. But what we have found is that part-time students like to get a start done on their MSc that summer. Okay, they try to set it up, they try to understand what they're trying to get done, and the really good ones actually get quite a bit of work done that summer, so they can get the practicum done in a way that suits their part-time work. We've always had part-time people over the years. They've operated subject to their jobs. Like sometimes the job literally takes them out of the country, but subject to their jobs, part-time people have done very, very well on the MSc because they can obviously bring their experience and their work into it, which is quite nice. So thanks for the question, Rajdeep. It's a good question. In general, we always start in September, right? When I say in general, this MSc always starts its rotation from September to September. Okay. No problem. Okay. Any other things? How do you do well in this MSc? So if you do and come along, how do you do well in it? Well, it's like anything. You have to really engage. Okay. 12 weeks, I don't know, depends on your point of view. It might seem either very long or very short. We think it's very short, as in you need to get involved in week 1 and try to stay up with the work. And, there's quite a bit of work. Assignments take quite a bit of time. So you need to try and get into a rhythm of doing the work every week. What is the work? Well, obviously, attending the lectures, reading the information that's associated with the lectures, trying to understand it, asking questions if you don't understand it, all of that. That means keeping up. So if you keep up week by week, then by week 12, you're in the position to review all your work, and you're in a position like this week of preparing for the exams. If, on the other hand, you don't keep up, there will be a reckoning, if you like, with the exam. It's going to be quite tough for you. So we like people to try and keep up as they're going along. But it is an MSc. I think that's important. So it's a master in science, as in you're meant to master it. You're meant to understand it at a postgraduate level. Lectures in general aren't recorded, okay? Some of them, so for example, the one I give, we have all of the material online, and I record what are called basically a podcast, but it's not a lecture, because the podcast is only Q&A. You're meant to do all the work online, okay? But other lectures have labs, and you have to attend the lab in order to do the assignments, in order to understand, for example, how to use particular languages and how to use particular algorithms. So it is not an online course, okay? It is really based around the idea of being involved, being here, doing the work in labs, getting on with people, trying to create a community. It is quite a community of people. Okay, two of the other things that I didn't mention. One is that we have two, like I'm sitting in the School of Computing now, but there are two big wings. One is Insight. That is the research center that looks at basically data analytics, right? They've been around for a long time. They're spread all across Irish universities. They're funded by the Research Council in Ireland and also by Europe. But we have a huge amount of the staff here. And when I say the staff, I mean PhD researchers, postdocs, etc. In fact, a lot of them are moving into one of our new buildings now. That's how big they are. Polaris is our new building in DCU. But our lecturers work with Insight. So they work on real world problems with real companies, and then they can use that coming back to the MSc in order to allow them to, if you like, explain to you how these algorithms are really used in practice as opposed to in theory. So that's Insight on one end. And then on the other end, the other wing is called Adapt. And Adapt began life as a machine translation type place. Slightly different name, but we won't go back to that. Now it's called Adapt because it's really content generation they're looking at. And they are all over natural language processing. So our lecturers in the natural language processing area all do research with Adapt on, again, applying natural language processing ideas to things as strange as signing, you know, and they're involved in big European projects on how to capture signing and obviously capture it from an AI point of view and process it in order to help people with sign language, things like that. Also, if you have any specific questions, you can always get me fairly easily at this address. I try to answer the questions very quickly, but if they are questions about visas and things like that, I don't, they're outside my ken. I don't answer any questions about money, finance, because that's outside my ken as well. But any academic questions I can answer, okay? And that's my role.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Renat. Very comprehensive there and lots of very useful information there for the students. Guys, just on Renat's point there as well, if you do have questions about your visa requirements or anything to do with finance, you can find that information on the Postgraduate Hub. That information is there under the various sections. We've got sections for global students. We've got sections on funding and finance as well. So just check out our Postgraduate Hub. I'm going to pop the link into the chat now, so you can use that as a resource. There is contact information there as well for the relevant faculty and relevant support units. So it's all there for you. If nobody else has any questions, I can't see anybody else typing at the minute. Renat has left his contact information there. If you've, as he said, if you've course-related questions, please forward them to him. If you've wider questions regarding the postgraduate process, like visas and fees, the relevant contact information can be found by using the link I've put into the chat there as well. So with that said then, guys, I'd like to thank Renat for his time to give us a walkthrough on how the course works and how it functions. Thank you very much for that, Renat. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hope you've found it enjoyable. I've just seen Rajdeep is just typing here, so I'll just hold off, make sure I don't cut him off on a question. Oh, he's just say thank you. Yeah, so that's perfect, guys. Sorry, I just seen him typing again. Just want to make sure There's no more questions, Reggie. Just before I finish up, don't want to cut you off. It's a bit of a game of Texas Hold'em at the minute.
Okay.
No more on his end. Great. Okay, guys, so that's perfect. We'll end the session there then. If you have any other questions on the course, you can follow up with Renat via email. If you have any wider questions on the application process or the postgraduate process, all necessary information can be found at the Postgraduate Hub. Until next time, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks again to Renat for his time, and have a lovely afternoon. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, folks.